I'm mindful of Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are good, are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. I think on this a lot. I was reminiscing on my story. And every time I get into these spaces where I just think back on how I used to move and how I used to think 3 or so years ago compared to where I am now, mind blowing. I mean, man, there have been many times, over the last few months alone where I'm like, man, I wouldn't even dare to move in the manner that I do now, if it wasn't for this heart change, if it wasn't for the willingness to say, yo, I'm going to wake up every day and commit to Jesus, commit to his word, commit to just washing my mind in these spaces where I'm actually being edified and being filled with healthy thinking. It's not healthy to think about all day. It's not healthy to always have negative responses and negative thoughts in your mind. And again, and even though all this conversation is interesting too, you also have to keep in mind your subconscious mind. So there's a conscious and there's a subconscious mind. The conscious mind, right? It's things that you think, like you're actually putting yourself in positions and places to think about. The subconscious is things that you don't necessarily think about doing, right? Like when you're driving down the road and you're driving on a long road trip or whatever the case may be, if you've ever had a moment where you're like, bro, I really took this drive like 10 minutes. I didn't even realize it. Didn't even think about it. That's like your subconscious mind, right? And sometimes a lot of the stuff is rooted in your subconscious mind because of what all you've thought about. Okay. Everything that's, floated in and out of your mind, things that you fed yourself, what you watch, what you hear, people you're around, the conversations you're a part of, all of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you hear repetitively that begins to form in a portion of your subconscious mind, to where when you start to want to think differently, when you start to want to do things differently, that subconscious mind is being stretched. And oftentimes it'll come back right into its regular form. If you think of a rubber band, okay, a ball rubber band, if you ever tried to stretch that thing, right, oftentimes it'll come back to its regular spot. Kind of got these small rubber bands here, okay. Hopefully it's clear enough. It looks like it's clear enough. And so every time that it stretches, though, right, it kind of comes back to its regular form in some kind of way, right? So I can't stretch it too far without it being out of its regular position before it comes back and returns to its normal state. That's what your subconscious mind does. Anytime you try to change a different direction, you try to do something different than what you're used to, than what you were programmed by. And so as important as these kinds of conversations are, it's also important to recognize, what have you been programmed by for so long that has you in a continuous space of thinking how you typically think? Maybe you're an individual who thinks that love isn't real. One of the spaces, right, if you think about it, comes from a place of hurt, comes from a place of pain. People have betrayed you. People have turned on you. People have said awful things about you, and you never had a relationship that was lasting. So all of that stuff starts to form this subconscious mind about how you view love. So anytime that an opportunity to be loved or to love comes up, you're never thinking it's going to last. You're never thinking it's going to be ultimately what it looks like. Something's fishy here. I'm real skeptical. I'm always skeptical, right? And so it keeps you from being able to be a part of that. Maybe you have a subconscious mind of a lot of negative self-thoughts towards you. Not good enough, will never be a good enough. I'll never get this, I'll never get that. I'm too ugly to be dated. I'm too ugly to be taken. No one wants me. All those kinds of things, right? Comes from a place of subtle, of continuous, repetitive thinking patterns that have been fed into you that you have put on replay. And so now it's forming into your regular brain, your regular form of thinking. So anytime that you try to do words of affirmations, okay, you try to affirm yourself every day. I look good. I feel good. This, that, and the third. You stand in the mirror. That's why your mind immediately says, no, you don't. Because it's your subconscious mind that's telling you, right, based on everything that's been fed to you on a repetitive cycle, you're not really what you're trying to tell yourself you are. And so that's why it's difficult to overcome spaces of negative thoughts and self-defeating thoughts and all these other kinds of things, because you've programmed your way of thinking based on things you've listened to, you've heard, conversations you've been around. Maybe it's a comparison. You're online 24/7. You see Andrew Tate balling. You see Sneeko balling. You see all these cats just going crazy with money, with women, all that kind of stuff, and telling you how to be a man, this, that, and the third. And then you look at yourself and you're like, I don't look like none of that. So you play a comparison game. You play a comparison game in conversations. You play a comparison game in something as small as the fit you got on, body image, all that kind of stuff. One of the craziest things that I have learned over the last couple of years is how influential music can really be. When you turn on certain music, when you turn on certain songs, certain albums, certain artists, whatever the case is, like the beat is so catchy and the flow is so nice that you almost don't care about the lyrics as much as you care about the beat, because the flow is just that dope. And what you don't realize is that there's the lyrics that are being said are either a reflection of the person that's rapping them, singing them, whatever the case is, a reflection of what they believe, a reflection of their life, their past, a reflection of whatever. And it's always a message that is contained in that music. And so one thing that I've noticed is people's playlists has a tendency to reveal to you the kind of thinking that they do, the kind of behaviors that they carry out. And so it's no wonder, right? It's always on the mind. And it's always on the mind. Whose cheeks you gonna clap, and DMs you gonna slide in, what you gonna do, how long you gonna do it, how many times you gonna do it, day in, day out. This is why things like shoot 'em up, bang, bang, I'm turning around your block, got the 9, I'm finna light it on fire, it's all gonna be mine, all that kind of stuff, right? Like all this stuff, man. And you wonder, right? Like why you're depressed and why anxiety is through the roof and why you're having sleepless nights and why you just can't seem to think certain things don't go how you want them to go, how you feel they should go, all this kind of stuff. Is because all of that is just playing a huge role in influencing how you think. So these are just things I want you guys to think about as we have this conversation. Because we're seeing a lot of ideologies out here today, y'all. A lot of ideologies, a lot of philosophies that are being tossed around back and forth that are toxic. And the only way that you can identify it being toxic is if you're in the right frame of mind to be able to see it from the outside looking in, or you've experienced it and you're like, yeah, that's pretty toxic. So think on these things for a little bit. Listen, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, just to sum up the entire point of this video, when we focus on the right things, the things that are pure, the things that are lovely, honest, righteous, everything that Philippians 4 verse 8 suggests to us, not only will we see the toxicity in much of the other stuff that is influencing our minds, but we'll also see the results of those things, the behaviors, the desires, the temptations, all those kinds of things that we're able to analyze, spot when we get down to the root of why we do what we do, why we feel the way we feel, and then furthermore, adjusting our thinking away from the things that are toxic and destroying us and closer to the things that are edifying, refreshing, washing our minds in what God says about us, and ultimately doing what Paul suggests in Romans 12, being transformed by the renewing of our mind. So what are you programmed by? What are some things that you are noticing have programmed you to do what you currently do, think the way you currently think about any and everything? And don't condemn yourself in this process. Analyze these things. It'll be extremely helpful to know root causes and know how to adjust from those ways of thinking, entering into the transformation of a renewed mind. Appreciate you for watching. And as always, until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.